and Sports of Madagascar, Mauritius, and the Comoros Islands that led to Djibouti athletes participating in the 11th Games of the French-speaking countries of the Indian Ocean. The ministers were introduced to the Prime Minister by the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohammed Kamil, and during this meeting, the Prime Minister was thanked for honoring the opening ceremony of the Games with his presence. The delegates of the host countries also expressed their sincere thanks to all the Djiboutian authorities for the efforts made to ensure the full success of these Games. And at the end of his speech, the Malakashi's minister, who is also the president of the Games, presented a gift to the Prime Minister, a crystal with the logo of the Games. He stressed that the Games are held in good conditions and that young people feel good and enjoy their pleasant stay in Djibouti. He added that the problems of the beginning were quickly resolved thanks to the goodwill of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, who is a very receptive person. The Comorian minister then took the floor. He wanted to tell us the slander of some media on the conditions of accommodations and restoration of young people. He assured the Prime Minister that contrary to these rumors, Djibouti had taken up the challenge. He nevertheless acknowledged the existence of some early worries which were quickly settled with the collaboration of all, in that moreover no young person has been the victim of food poisoning. In the framework of the 11th Games, the pétanque competition started yesterday on the field facing the technical center for municipal stadium. All the teams from the countries participating in the competition were present at the launch. The kickoff was given by the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohammed Kamil, in the presence of the delegation of the Commission of Indian Ocean. Mr. Hassan Kamil wished them success of this competition. And more on the program of the 11th Games of the Commission of the Youth and Sports of the countries of Indian Ocean takes place on two sites, the Guleri Stadium and the Technical Center, the former municipal stadium. In football, 3 games are scheduled this afternoon at the National Technical Center, where the teams meet against the island of Réunion Mayotte, the formation of Comoros meets that of Mauritius, and finally the teams of Madagascar will oppose to that of Seychelles. Athletics are scheduled for the final boys and girls 200 and 100 meters this afternoon from 5 p.m. at the Guleri Stadium. The table tennis competition continued and will be closed this evening with the presentation of the medals. In pétanque competitions, the first position firing rounds and the 70th round of the triplets are planned in the field of the National Technical Center. And finally, the day will be closing tonight by the youth section with the presentation of technique of a traditional dance with music and plays by the troops of Seychelles and the islands of Réunion. The new ambassador of the United States of America to Djibouti, Mr. Larry Andre, paid a brief courtesy visit to the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed today. The meeting between the two men took place in the Hall of Honor, where they were able to discuss several aspects related to the bilateral relations, as well as the U.S. military presence on Djiboutian soil, which remains to this day the only U.S. military base on the African continent. The meeting coincided with the arrival earlier of Djiboutian soil of the United States Under Secretary of State for African Affairs Donald Yamamoto. Also, the prior visit was an opportunity for Ambassador Larry to seek the approval of the Prime Minister to begin a tour of the various ministerial departments, an approach that Ambassador Larry assigned to Djibouti toward the end of January 2018 could not do because of the electoral elections that had started at the same time in Djibouti. Ambassador Larry is not on his first visit to Djibouti since he stayed in 2004. Also, he wanted to share with the Prime Minister his impressions on the transformation of Djibouti since that time, that this either in terms of infrastructure or the growing mastery of Djiboutians English speaking. The Prime Minister reiterated his welcome message to the new ambassador and his availability for other fruitful meetings. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, had a meeting with his Kenyan counterpart Juma this afternoon in the meeting room of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The Kenyan Minister of Foreign Affairs was head of a strong delegation of officials from her department. The discussions focused on the diplomatic relations of two countries in cooperation. The goal was to strengthen bilateral relations that unite the two countries and the two people, brother and friend. The diplomatic meeting in Djibouti and Kenya saw the participation of Djibouti's ambassador to Kenya, Mr. Yasin Al-Mibuh, and the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Mohammed Hassan.
You have found time to receive us, and I was anxious to come, as I had indicated to you that I wish to have a meeting in Djibouti quickly, first to pay my courtesies, but also to begin to engage substantively on revitalization of our bilateral relations and other relations linked to our mutual interest at the regional and international levels. So allow me to thank you for hosting us today and tomorrow. Let me begin by the lapse in the working in a structured way in terms of the JCC, and to propose, Your Excellency, that even as we work towards the state visit early next month, which we are delighted about, I want to propose that we can even contemplate the next JCC. And I was going to propose, if this is acceptable to Your Excellency, somewhere towards the end of August or early September, so that we can begin to work in terms of knowing that there will be a JCC. But I agree with your proposal that we need to take advantage of the coming days to try as much as possible to relook at some of the commitments that we had placed before ourselves and some of the ongoing areas, so that we can form a basis for the state visit.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, has also spoken for this occasion. This is what he said.
Kenya and Djibouti have so many things in common. We share cultural and African traditions, language, religion, and way of life. Remember, we are all cattle and goat breeders. The geographical proximity and our shared membership to the most of the regional organizations give our two countries such an amazing ground for partnership. We can no longer miss this golden opportunity by setting the course straight and launch a much more dynamic cooperation. Last time we held our joint commission meeting, it was in 2010. How come that so many years passed without any wake-up call from any side? Yes, we exchanged visits at high level, but that remained only courtesy visits, courtesy calls. Your Excellency and dear Sister Monica, we are going to discuss this morning a number of items related to education, tourism, energy, and trade. We need to give substance to our cooperation and put forward concrete measures in order to prepare the legal framework for a productive partnership. There are, of course, some agreements and protocols that could be revisited and others be drafted as soon as possible. We are excited to envisage the upcoming state visit from His Excellency President Ismail Omar Guelleh to Kenya early May next month. I suggest that we work hard during the remaining few weeks to set a number of goals with regard to the above-mentioned agreements and high-level visits. Your Excellency, I would remiss my duty by not mentioning the tremendous role played by Kenya in the stabilization process in both Somalia and South Sudan.
In the main barracks of the gendarmerie calmly called Captain Hamadou, the prosecutor of the Republic in Djibouti, Mr. Eid Ahmed Ibrahim, accompanied by two prosecutors, namely Mrs. Saida Ahmed Abdallah and Aisha Arafat Abubakar Hassan, attended the continuation of two refresher courses in the practice of judicial policy, focusing on investigation and hearing techniques for the benefit of 17 trainers scheduled from April 15 to 26. These two courses were able to take place thanks to the assistance of French cooperation. This is part of the capacity building of investigators of the gendarmerie and in application of the directors of His Excellency the President of the Republic to enhance the quality of judicial proceedings. The presence of the public prosecutor testifies to the importance he attaches to the training of OPJ personnel who are placed under his authority as an auxiliary of justice. The public prosecutor and his delegation witness the quality and reliability of the training delivered to these trainees. The prosecutor of the Republic has in his intervention congratulated the graduate of the training, mainly focused on investigation and hearing techniques. He did not miss to thank the French authorities for their cooperation. A forum bringing together businessmen from Djibouti and Saudi Arabia took place yesterday at the Hotel Kempinski. The forum was opened by Mr. Abdel Meshkir, Secretary General of the Ministry in charge of Investments. The event was attended by the President of the Chamber of Commerce of Djibouti, Mr. Yusuf Moussa Douale, and the head of the Saudi delegation, Mr. Riyad Mohsen Al-Uraibi, the Ambassador of Djibouti to Riyadh, the Charge d'Affaires of the Saudi Embassy in Djibouti, the President of the Authority of Ports and Prisons, Mr. Abubakar Marhadi, also attended. During this meeting, various presentations were made on investment opportunities in Djibouti, on new infrastructure that have been created, such as new ports, free zones, roads and railways. Other projects, including gas and oil terminals, are under construction. This presentation was made by the Ministry of Investment through the National Agency for the Promotion of Investment. The Chamber of Commerce has also announced that the second international fair in Djibouti will take place from 3 to 10 December. The Secretary General of the Ministry of the Presidency in charge of investment, Mr. Abdel Meshkir, urged in his speech at the opening of the Saudi Arabia Djibouti Business Forum the businessmen of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to take advantage of the investment opportunities available in Djibouti. URI is a network advocating for the promotion of peace, intercultural religious dialogue in the Horn of Africa. It is supported in action by local communities who are engaged and interconnected and cultivates a deep respect for the values and morals of diversity, social, political, economic and environmental justice as the non-violent resolution of conflicts. Set up a space for dialogue and exchange for young people today to become tomorrow's leaders, accompany them, and offers the opportunity to discover the political where the business were and the companies as well. These are as many challenges as economic and political actors are trying to revive to put in place a number of strategic programs for young people across Africa. It is precisely in the context that the intergenerational exchange initiative comes into play, creating a space for reflection and exchange. The dialogue area aims to set up circles of exchange between a generation of men and women who have several years of experience in their respective fields and a generation that is still in questioning. It is essential to make transfer experience more accessible to bring out a generation better prepared for their future. On the morning of Wednesday, April 18, held at the RTD Training Center, the Sunny Hill, on management and leadership training. All educational and administrative staff took part in the training, which focused on a highly important theme that is especially useful for the smooth running of their day-to-day work. Animated by Mr. Talal Turkhan, Human Resources Management expert, international consultant, specially trained to train Sheraton staff. Indeed, the aim of this morning's work was to get the participants to reflect on their own professional practices in terms of human management, and also to put in place an action plan that will allow everyone to regulate their management. Under the aegis of the Saudi affairs responsible in Djibouti, Hassan bin Mohammed Al-Amari, the Saudi school in Djibouti organized yesterday afternoon at the People's Palace a closing ceremony of school activities for the year 1438-1439 of the Hijra. The event took place in the presence of the Secretary General of the National Education, Mr. Mohammed Abdullah Mahayoub, with the Diplomatic Corps accredited in the Republic of Djibouti. The Director of the Saudi School, Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaiman Junah, the participants then followed a visual presentation on the activities of the Saudi School carried out by 3 decades in addition to the activities carried out by the Saudi School during this year. The participants also followed another program on the teaching of Arabic language to non-speakers, while the students of the Saudi School presented several songs and poems to pay farewell to the director of the school, Mr. Mohammed bin Sulaiman al-Junah. At the end of the ceremony, the graduates were honored for their scientific achievements. The teachers of the Saudi School were also honored in recognition of the tremendous efforts they made to promote the school's performance and enable it to fulfill its noble good conditions. The Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the Mayor and the Prefecture of Djibouti, continued relentlessly large-scale indoor and space-spraying activities in Districts 6 and 5 of the capital. In accordance with the passage schedule, INSPD teams carried out door-to-door residential activities on more than 320,000 households in Ward 6 and plan to build more than 1,500 households in Ward 5. The teams of the Department of Disease Control and the National Institute of Public Health aim to reduce the spread of mosquitoes, which is the main factor in the transmission of malaria, and at the same time acts on flies and insects. The Ministry of Health has simultaneously launched intensive preventive activities targeting the vector and carried out by ministry technicians in collaboration with the health and hygiene committees of the respective districts. Obituary: following the death of the late Habib al-Mirah in Djibouti, the Ministers of Defense, the Minister of the Presidency in charge of investment, Ali Ghali Abubakar, the Minister of Decentralization, the Secretary General of the Prime Minister, Mr. Musa Abarda, and Broketa sent their deepest condolences to the family of the deceased Habib Ali Mirah. These messages of compassion addressed to the entire family and loved ones of deceased in Djibouti, Ethiopia, or elsewhere in the world. An official figure in Ethiopia, particularly in the region where he has been president of several years, has left a great void among all Ethiopian communities, particularly in the Afar region. And at the same time, the same personalities addressed their condolences following the death of the second deputy mayor of the late Kadir Hussein, died in Turkey. They pray the good God to welcome him in his eternal paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. On the news outside our borders, the high-ranking rebel leader in Yemen was killed in a strike by Saudi Arabia's military coalition yesterday in the province of Hodeidah. The death of the Saleh al-Samati is a serious setback for the Houthis, who have threatened revenge. His name was on a list of 40 Houthi leaders who had been prized by Saudi Arabia. Samat was replaced as head of the political council by Mehdi Hussein al-Mashad. According to the Houthis statement, the Houthis are at work against the power of President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi, held since March 2015 by the military coalition led by the Saudi Kingdom, neighbor of Yemen. The conflict in Yemen killed nearly 10,000 people and caused the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, according to the UN. And now in Sudan, urges Russian companies to invest in its hydrocarbons industry. Abdulzahir Mohammed, the senior advisor to the Sudanese oil minister, told the Sputnik that the government is calling on Russian oil companies to invest and develop Sudan's oil and gas potential. Sudan also does not close entry to the oil services sectors and liquefied natural gas to Russian companies. The North African country also wants to position itself on this energy, which is the subject of a wide competition elsewhere on the continent and in the world. This is why investment in gas exploration is highly desirable. In case of discovery of natural gas and liquefied natural gas production, only domestic demand would be preferred, according to the government, which explains that proven gas reserves are limited and domestic demand is significant. In Nigeria, there is a major conflict between nomadic shepherds and farmers. The clashes have already killed 2,500 people, displaced another 62,000, and resulting in the loss of $13.7 million in revenue. In January 2018 alone, the conflict killed 168 people. The shepherds are mostly Fulani and predominantly Muslim people who live scattered in West Africa. Farmers are really Christians. It is explained that the conflict is motivated by the religion and ethnic origin of the people who live there. And that's it for this news. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.